welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Have you ever faced a setback so daunting that starting over seemed impossible? As creatives, we pour our hearts and souls into our work, often finding ourselves on a winding path full of unexpected twists and turns. It's not just about the end product, but the journey itself, the lessons learned, and the resilience built along the way. In the world of creativity, perseverance is key. It's about pushing through the challenges, whether it's writer's block, rejection, or unforeseen circumstances that threaten to derail our progress. How do you stay motivated when everything seems to be falling apart? How do you find the strength to start over time and time again? These are questions that every creative faces, and finding the answers is part of what makes our journey so profound and rewarding. And today we're going to dive deep into the importance of perseverance in the relentless pursuit of our creative passions. Hopefully, we'll also explore the importance of some research, the crucial role of early marketing, just some elements that are not only steps in the process, but vital components that shape our creative journeys and define our successes. Our guest today embodies the spirit of resilience. Steven Brayton, a published author who has faced some unique challenges along his publishing journey, knows what it means to start over and over and over again. His story is a testament to the love of the craft and the strength found in never giving up. Steven's experiences offer invaluable insights into the importance of adaptability and the power of perseverance. So stay tuned as we delve into Steven's journey, learn from his experiences, and find inspiration in his unwavering commitment to his craft. Steven, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk with writers and hosts who talk with writers, and just to talk with people. That's just great.
I love it. I'm so excited because your story is one of, like I said, perseverance. But before we get into the deep end of your story, let's just take a minute to kind of get to know you and tell us about yourself. Have you always been a writer? How did that happen?
I have been a reader of books since I was a child. I don't think my parents pushed me into it, but I just grabbed a book, and I have most of the collection of the Hardy Boys books and the Three Investigators, Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators books. And I just started reading. At one point, my mind said, I can write some of this stuff. I think I can write some of this stuff. So I created a character a long time ago, Sam P. Peterson, who lived in the Quad Cities, which is where I came from, East Moline, and just wrote some little short stories and wrote a thriller or part of a thriller, and thought I was really cool when I said, I used a 4-letter word, a very mild one, but I thought that was, daring. But the writing bug really didn't hit me until about 95, when I was out of college, and I had moved to a little small town here in south central Iowa, and started martial arts. And the writing bug had hit me before. It just didn't go anywhere. The people I had worked with, even that could be a beginning part of the deep diving into the story. The people on the other end couldn't follow through with their end of it, and so I just went a different direction. And but I had joined martial arts at the time. I had been living in Oskaloosa for about a year, and I had always been kind of interested in seeing what martial arts was like. And so one day I was walking up on the town square and saw a sign that said 2 weeks free classes. And I thought, sure, let's go for it. And never looked back. And so that was 95, and I'm 30 years into it now, 30 something years into it now. And then when the writing bug hit, I thought, well, I have to, I want a private investigator. So I thought I'd resurrect that old Sam P. Peterson. But then my mind said, no, you have to go a different direction, because I had been to so many workouts and testings and tournaments and seen all these wonderful, beautiful, talented women in the sport. And I said, nope, it has to be a woman as the main character.
Nice.
So that's where Mallory Peterson was born.
I love that. I love that experience brought your story to life. I love when that happens. Mine came from a dream. It was like, I woke up from a dream and thought, I wonder how that ends. And so I picked it up from there and just kind of went with it. But I love that you used your experiences and something that you were very passionate about to write the story, and that And that you didn't let stereotypes kind of define who your characters are going to be. I
No,
love that.
the big challenge is in a lot of the books is to figure out the fight scenes. Try to use
Yeah.
different martial art techniques. Well, she just kicked him. Well, that gets old after a while. It has to be a different type of kick or a different scenario each time. So I use what I have learned a little bit and trained in a little bit. And when I go to classes, they show me new stuff. And I think, well, that's kind of cool. Let's put that in a story if that's possible.
No, I love that. And you also want to be true to it. So if you're like she is an expert in this martial art, whatever it may be, you kind of have to be the expert in that and know, okay, this is the move that would be used here, but it would not be used over here because they're different. And so you would have to kind of know what you're talking about, and in order for the reader to experience, because you do also know that readers will call you out when you use I'm sorry, that's not what this would do over here in this situation. It's like, okay, sorry, I'm not an expert. You have to be
Yes.
careful.
Oh, yes. That is one of the great advantages of joining a writer's critique group, is because everybody has different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So the one I attend on Tuesday evenings, if I have any incorrect about weapons or the military, I got two military guys there that will just go, nope, that's not right, or you need a more powerful gun. I have a policeman friend, a former policeman friend, and she will tell me, no, you can't do that. They don't do that. Okay, that's great. I'll change the scene and make it work.
Yes, my second book, there's the main character, he's the sheriff of a small town, and so there were plenty of times where I had to call my dad, who is a former police officer and is now the chaplain for his local police department, and be like, how would he take this guy down if he's got a knife? Like I need your
Yeah.
expert opinion here, because I knew that I had watched a lot of things on TV. But I also know that they do a lot of things in Hollywood that would be very different from reality, and I want my books as close to reality as possible.
Oh, yes. You can't rely on television shows
Right.
or movies for reality. I think there was only one show that I never did get to see. Southland, maybe, about
I've
some
heard, yeah.
police officers. It was the most realistic, the way they walked, the way they talked, the way they moved, the way they held their arms, the body position, all throughout, I guess, was very realistic, as opposed to Castle.
Right, right. Exactly. Or, CSI, where they're rushing things through the lab and it only takes you a couple of hours to get the results back. In reality, it's going to take you a couple of weeks. You have to.
DNA
there's a
comes back
timeline.
in 2 hours. Really? I don't think so. What miracle did you use to shortchange the 3-day minimum?
Seriously, I think I'd want my DNA run 4 or 5 more times if it was coming back that quickly, just to be sure I'm the guilty party.
You bet.
Oh my goodness. So we kind of already got to that part. We'll come back to that in a minute, because I want to know, you wrote your first story, and then did you decide to hold on to it? Did you decide to publish it? What was your journey after you wrote the story?
So I had written it, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I hadn't learned any of the craft of writing. I just wrote it the way I thought it should be written. And it was about 40,000 words, and I didn't know what to do with it. One day, an author from Des Moines had come down to the Oskaloosa Library and promoting his recently published book. And I approached him and said, hey, I'm a writer too. I'd like to get in, like to know what to do with my stories. And he showed me the critique group. He introduced me to the critique groups. So for a long time, I was driving 90 minutes each way every week, and just to join a group that it started out very strong. Before I started, there were 20, 30, 40 people there at a time, and not everybody could read, of course, every time. By the time I got there, there were maybe a dozen, and throughout time it dwindled to 8 before it finally fell apart, and I went away because it wasn't meeting my needs anymore. However, in those first meetings, along around 2000, 2001, something like that, I started reading my story thinking, and I still remember my attitude walking in there thinking, I have a great story. Listen to this. And soon realized I had written a 40,000 word piece of garbage, which is what all first drafts are anyway. But I didn't realize that. And it took me a long time and I'm still learning. I mean, even after 20, 24, 25 years, I'm still learning and I'm still working and I'm still striving to improve. By the time I finished receiving critiques on the first couple of chapters of that original story, the idea for the second story was really coming on strong. And so I dropped the first story, started the second story, moved through one or two or three other critique groups that lasted a little bit, lasted maybe a few years, didn't go anywhere, dropped off. We joined others, finally got back with the original Tuesday night group who had dwindled to maybe 10, 8 or 10, and changed persons throughout the individuals throughout the years. But it ended up being I ended up going with a publisher who was an ebook only publisher at the time. And I thought, so this was late 2000s.
Okay.
And at that time, ebooks were really coming into popularity. Mm-hmm. They've been around for several years, but really coming into popularity. And everybody was telling me, hey, you need to get an ebook. You need to get that thing on ebook. Get that story published on an ebook. So I come out with an ebook and I say, here it is. And those same people will come back and say, do you have it in print? Can I get a physical book?
Oh my gosh.
And I just want to, take the palm of the heel up against the forehead, in frustration of that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you know what though? Times are still changing back and forth like that now. People are like, "Ooh, ebook," and then they're back to wanting print books, and so it's a cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, so now they want the paperback. Did you print a book, or did you leave them with an ebook?
Well, I dealt with this small press who, once you reached a certain number of sales, which I never knew the number, or if I did, I forgot and never reached it anyway, then you could get it in print. So she published 2 of my books that I had written because I had the second in the Mallory Peterson series, which ended up being the first published, and the first supernatural horror paranormal type story that I had finished up. So she published both of those, both in ebook. When I finally did get published, I could say, hey, I'm a writer, I'm an author, I'm a published author now. I got to thinking about that first Mallory Peterson story. And I thought, and so I dug it out, looked it over and said, I can do something with this. I've learned a lot more. I can do something with this. Let me rework it a little bit, add a couple of tweaks to it, keep the same plot throughout, and we'll go for it. So I finished it up, turned it into another publisher, and it finally got out in print.
Nice. Okay, so that's the second publisher. And you kept on the ebooks with the other publisher, or?
Up until she had some health problems and closed the business.
What happens to your work at that point?
I get my rights back.
Okay. At least there's that.
There is that, although there have been difficulties in that.
That's true.
With the first publisher, it was fine. She was pretty organized, and everything just sort of said, the assistant said, you get your rights back, here you go. I'm sorry, good luck, that type of thing. With the second publisher, she died.
Oh dear.
and it was a little disorganized in the company with trying to get royalties and accounts and finances figured out. We did get our rights back, but if there were any royalties out there, they were lost in the universe. So now I'm stuck starting over again in about 2014. By this time, I've been a member of a critique group in Knoxville, Iowa, which is about 25 miles from where I live. The owner had started his group back in 2003, and it was going strong. And I like both groups. I am not going to critique or criticize both groups. But like I said, the Tuesday night group would be the more where I can dig into some military and police and get some critique there along those lines. A lot of them are poets, and I'm not putting on poetry, so Don't write me nasty letters saying I don't like poetry, because I've been published 6 times in poetry anthologies, although I'm not a poet. So even though they keep saying I am, I'm not, and poetry's not my cup of tea. But don't write me nasty letters. I'm not dissing poetry. Anyway, the Thursday night group. Let's get away from that subject. The Thursday night group really delves deeper into the craft of writing, and I have learned so much there, and I've tried to pass it on to the Tuesday night group, who has who are a lot of them are beginners. There are some beginning writers there, and that's fine. I was too. In a lot of ways, I still am. So in that group, I met I met a woman who, she and her husband started a publishing company, and they really wanted me as one of their first clients. And so I went with them. So we had the first 2, and actually the first 3 in the Mallory Peterson series published with them. And they didn't want the supernatural story or its sequel. And that was fine. So I was searching around for some others and found one other that wanted it. And I found there were some issues with this publisher, with the publisher of the Mallory Peterson series. And I was looking around for something else. I didn't necessarily, I wasn't disliking them. There's just some issues and some current concerns with them that really got to me. So I ended up going with a firm out of Texas, and she really, with another book, it was another series. She really liked the writing style that I had. And so I gave her the 4th and the 5th in the Mallory Peterson series. And so she published all 3, the new series, beginning one, and the Mallory Peterson series. So everything was rolling along really well till about 21. And COVID was starting. Everybody's going crazy. And I'm finding problems in the printed books of the publisher that I didn't know existed. My fault. I will take responsibility for not requesting a final galley before it was published to get proofs. So there were some formatting issues, a lot of formatting issues. I will not take responsibility for not looking through the editing that the publisher should have done. And so I ended up making them upset. They said, "You don't like our services, here's your rights back." And at about the same time period, the publisher of the horror story gave me my rights back because apparently I wasn't making their sales quota. And then at the end of May, I receive an email in my junk. It ended up in my spam. I didn't know it. And I'm just looking through it, and I see this, "Are you an author with this company?" And I thought, well, that's weird. And it had a phone number, and I called her up and I said, I introduced myself, and she says, "Yeah, did you know she died?" "No." "When did she die?" 1st of May. "Really?" So it's 3-4 weeks before anybody knows, and nobody in the family, nobody in the company took responsibility to call the authors and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, our publisher died. Good luck."
Oh my gosh.
So it took a while. I think most of a year, I think, before someone went through all the legal hassles to get an official letter from the family saying, I don't want the company anymore. Everybody has their rights back. It took that long because we're all sitting here in limbo. We don't know what to do. Our books are still out there. I had to contact Amazon to say, remove the books because they're not available anymore.
Wow.
So that's been my hassle. I keep finding publishers who have health problems, and to come to find out the publisher that published that gave me my rights back, they closed. I mean, the website's still open and they're still selling books, but they're not doing anything because of health problems.
Oh my gosh. Steven. Okay. So you've put 4 publishers through the ringer, apparently. No. So what have you decided? Are you going to go for another publisher? Or are you going to self-publish? Where are we here?
Oh, so I took going from about 7 or 8 books down to 0 as a sign that said, hey, let's look through these books one more time. Let's do some more deep editing, change some things around. I did have to change around the first of the Mallory Peterson series because once again, the cop came back and went, no, you can't do that. And I went, oh, okay, not a problem. Slight rewrite of the scene, a couple of scenes, but that's fine. And at the same time, I found some writing assistant software. So Scrivener is a great way to organize a lot of my books. I love the program. I'm not using it to its full capacity, but I'm using it to what my comfort level, and I'm getting what I need out of it.
Nice.
The other one was Pro Writing Aid.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever really want to feel inferior, throw your work into that piece of software and it will tell you how really, really, really bad you are.
Yeah.
I've tried Grammarly. Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid sort of disagree sometimes.
Yeah.
They conflict with each other. And I use Grammarly. I use them both. I use Grammarly at work, and actually I use Pro Writing Aid at work. But I really like Pro Writing Aid because it really digs deep, and I can improve so much, and it picks out little things that I would not have caught on my own.
Nice.
So I just ran every story through Pro Writing Aid. Actually, let me back up. When I found a publisher for my horror story, that's what he did. He ran my story through Pro Writing Aid, and I'm sitting here looking at a file going, I don't know what this means. I don't know what I'm looking at. I've never seen this before. What do I do with it? And so then I was introduced to Pro Writing Aid. Then I ran through every story through that and will continue to do so.
Yeah.
So I did find a new publisher for the horror story, and it was just released May 16th.
Fantastic.
I did find a new publisher for the first in the Mallory Peterson series, and I did write to her. Once again, she's a small publisher, and I did write to her. And one of the first questions I asked is, "What happens when you die?"
Valid.
I said, "I'm sorry for asking this question, but here's my history. What happens if you die? What happens to me?"
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of a lighthearted but serious question.
For real.
So before I went with her, then I found another publisher last year for the other series. She liked it, and we went through some developmental edits, which if we want to get into that, I can rant and rave and yell and scream at the ceiling because of those.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for the next round of edits to come through for those. And I'm waiting to hear from her too on the rest of the Mallory Peterson series.
Nice. Okay.
So it is, I didn't self-publish. I have nothing against self-publishing. I really don't. Our Thursday night group has quote unquote self-published. It's another story we can get into if you want. We did a collaborative book, which was a big, but we got it done. I'm never going to do it again, but it's a great book. And we went through like Ingram Spark, I believe it is. And we're working with them for other projects that I'm minimally involved with. But I have nothing against self-publishing. I just have been a traditional, hey, I want to be with a publisher. I don't want the hybrid model because in my mindset, I don't want to pay for somebody to publish the book. If I'm going to do that, I can publish it myself.
Sure.
I feel, I don't know, maybe it's a sense of, and once again, I'm not putting down self-published authors. I've met several who have some great books out there, and they're going well, and that's great. I have a sense of quote unquote legitimacy with publisher. That's my mindset.
Gotcha.
I feel legitimate on that.
Okay.
And that's not to say that self-publishing isn't legitimate. It is. That's just the way I prefer to go.
And that's fine. And that is something that I say all the time. I am self-published. I have done all of the work from start to finish. And that's where my sense of legitimacy comes from, is that I've had the final say. And so the success or failure of my book lands on me. I don't have to rely on somebody else to get me from point A to point B. I am from point A to point B, and as far as it's going to go is up to me. And so, and that's whatever fits. And then the hybrid model, I've got some really good friends that are authors who have done so well with the hybrid model, because they do pay, but they pay for the editing, the cover design, the developmental, that kind of thing, and some marketing to go along with it in the end. And so, if that's what you need, somebody to help hold your hand and guide you through it, then by all means, like, you do what's best for you and your work, because nobody knows your motivation level like you do. Nobody knows your work as well as you do, the help that it needs as much as you know it. So, to each his or her own. If you want to hybrid or traditional, you go for it. Stay away from vanity presses. That, I think everybody can agree with that. Vanity presses are of the devil, and they just want your money for a little sticker with their name on it. They will help you 0% of the time. So yes to all the other three, no to vanity presses.
I totally agree. I had the author that I mentioned a long time ago who came down to Oskaloo said that was his first publisher, was a vanity press, and he learned quickly and had to get out and go with somebody else, and it was a lot better experience for him.
Yeah, and it's so sad because there are so many, and I see it happen a lot more with either older authors who are just starting or Christian authors, because they trust everybody. I don't know, whatever the case may be, they just get taken, and I'm like, stay away. And I try so hard. I get into the Facebook groups and I'm like, that's a vanity press, say no, just say no to vanity presses. That's my motto. They're probably like, Jennifer, shh, we're good. But I'm gonna say it anyway.
Sure. No, I agree. I look at some of that and I think too good to be true.
Yes.
And there's a lot of them out there. And then I've really got to watch for the hybrid too, that say, hey, you pay me X thousands of dollars and we'll go for it. And I'm thinking that's rubbing the line for me. That's just,
yeah. You've got to show me that you've got a product in the end. You've got to show me that you've got results and have gotten results. I don't want to be your first guinea pig that pays you all that money. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, thinking about your experience with small press, and you haven't done self-publishing, so you can't really compare it. So what do they do for you in terms of, or what do you have to do in terms of marketing your work?
I have learned that it is still the majority, the lion's share of the marketing is done by the author.
Yeah.
The publisher will do what he or she can, but it is very limited. And it is up to the author to take the reins and go, however he or she can. That's just, and even now, the big five or big six, if you happen to get lucky to get in with them, they are not who they were 40, 50 years ago. Yeah. You still have to do you still have to do marketing and promoting. I don't care if you're with some of the biggies, you still have to get out there and hustle.
Yeah, and for them to even consider you really to become a client, like, you have to have already established yourself in so many different places. So you do, like, this in our pre-show communication, you were saying we can talk about how marketing early matters. It absolutely matters, whether you are small press or traditional or somewhere in between. Like, you have to establish your presence before people will start picking up your books.
It is, you have to treat it as a business. Yeah. And if you're not going to treat it that way, then you get what you get. And I mean, I'm in that boat. I'm learning as I go, unfortunately, and some things work, some things don't. But
Yep.
yes, start now. That's what I've learned. If you have a book idea and you're starting, hi, this is chapter 1, start promoting now.
Yeah.
It may be 2-3 years before you get published, but start promoting now. You have to. You can't wait until, hey, I have a book in my hand. That's too late.
Yeah, because at that point, when you start there, your mom and your dad and your aunt and your uncle, probably your mother-in-law, depending on your relationship, those will be your customers for a very long time.
Yes.
And so, yes, but once you get your first book out there, it is a little easier. So, hit the streets as early as possible before that first book comes out. But then also know that the second book does get a little bit easier because you have established readers out there who are excited about your next book, and they kind of share and they kind of share and they kind of share.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. It's a great goal.
Yes.
It's not always, and it's just like any other goal. Sometimes those goalposts have to move, realistically. Sometimes you have to bring them a little bit closer and say, you know what? One new review is excellent for this month because that's all I got,
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I'm one of those who I have a review. I'm going to get excited about that. Good, bad, indifferent. It's up there.
Yeah. Somebody read my book and had an opinion. I love it. Yeah. And it's not going to define me. Yeah, they're not going to, and it's not going to define me though, good or bad. If it's good, then yay, I agree. It's a great book. If it's bad, that's your opinion. Obviously, the book wasn't for you.
No, and I have had readers and reviewers who have not liked a few of my books. One in particular because of the subject matter, and I completely understand that. And in fact, I had difficulty finding editor for that particular book because the one I went to locally, she read the first couple chapters and said, "No, I can't handle this." I went, all right. I'm sorry. I don't get graphic. You know what it's about, but I do not get graphic. And so I went to another one, and she says, "Okay, give it to me." So.
Wow. That's right. Your book is not for every reader. My book is not for every reader. But when you find your readers, they become very loyal.
Yes.
Yes. That's another goal. Okay, so we are to the point of the show where I would like you to tell us about your next project or one you are excited to talk about.
Okay, so I have the Mallory Peterson series. That's I have about 5 done that have been published. Right now, only 1 is. I'm working on the 6th, 7th, and 8th. I'm reading the 6th to the critique groups, and I'm about finished with that. I have the 7th and 8th done, the first draft done for each. What else am I working on? However, I had this idea for a couple of years, and it finally got around to bugging me enough that I had to do something with it. And it came about, I was driving back from my parents' house, who live about an hour and a half south of me, and I was driving back, and I get a call from Dad and says, "Hey, you know what you did? You left your phone charger cord at the house." Oh, okay. Well, so instead of me driving all the way back, we met about halfway. And while I was waiting for him, I scribbled down a couple of notes on a couple of stories that I thought were kind of cool. Just a premise. Didn't do anything with it. Took it home, put it in a drawer, didn't do anything with it. So here, earlier this year, that story came back to really bug me, because I'd been thinking about it for a while, and I thought, what can I do with it? How can I deal with it? It's something completely different that I've written. I've written mysteries. I've written horror stories. This is more science fiction, fantasy, sort of, I guess, might be, it might edge upon fantasy, but it's about multiple dimensions and jumping from one dimension to another. And so I am not a pantser. I like outlines.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. I keep meeting those who go, "Oh, I can't. I'm so bound by outlines." No, you're not. Um, we can have a discussion on that for hours, I guess.
Yeah.
But I write outlines where I want the whole story in front of me. Then I can explore with that. I'm not writing a 160-page outline like Jeffrey Deaver does, where all he has to do is fill in the words, fill in the blank spaces, and then he's got a book. I don't want to take 3-4 months to do that. That's not my writing style. So I'll write an outline, and then I will start writing. And then if I venture off somewhere else, I can go back and change the outline. Or if I'm done, I can find places to add extra material to fill in some stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, make it sound like it's not filler, but to round out everything. So I finished this project in about 3.5 months. And I mean, it just flowed. I was so excited about writing it every chance I had. And I finally finished it. Well, I shouldn't say that, because today today something caught me and I thought, oh yeah, you have to go back and put something in that last chapter don't forget that. So I went back and I didn't do anything with it because I'm starting on the second book of that. I've got a partial outline, but it just keeps urging me to write it. I was trying to write another story, and just nothing was happening. So I thought, I can't do it. I can't force myself to do something, because it'll be more garbage than it probably would be if I, if it was flowing. So
yes.
I just took up the piece of paper. In fact, that was Sunday. This last Sunday, I met a writer friend. She looked at me and went, "You just want to get out of here, and because we're not doing anything." I said, "I just can't think. I just cannot. This is just not flowing for me." And so I just grabbed another piece of paper and started writing the second story. So that's what I'm getting excited. I want to finish up this Mallory Peterson story for the writers groups, and then get into this new one, because I am so interested to get critiques from people I know who are going to come back and go, "This really doesn't work for me. You can't do this. This is totally wrong," and everything. I want that critique, yes. And I'll be ready for it. I don't know how much credence I'll give it, and how many changes I'll make. That remains to be seen. But I'm really excited about this new one.
I love when I hit the flow state and it just happens.
Yeah.
It's really funny. So this entire month I fill with interviews. I podcast for an entire month, like record all of them, and then I have all of my material for the next 52 weeks, and I don't have to record again for several months until the next year. And so when it comes to doing that, I don't write as much. And that was true because I use Dabble Writer as my tracker and all of that, and my world builder and everything. And it told me, it was like, "Oh, congratulations, you wrote 1,900 words today of a 2,500 word goal, which is 1,900 more words than you've written in the last 30 days. And I was like, I know, okay, but I cannot do both. Thank you very much. Today, I just so happened had a few extra hours where I could sit and think and imagine for a minute. And so I was like, yeah, I get it. Okay, thank you for reminding me the dry spell that I've had. But it happens. But when you get in that zone, it's like, I am on it. Let's go.
I don't recall a story that I've ever written as fast. Like I said, I finished it in 3.5 months, pretty much. And I've never done that. It usually takes me most of a year to write something.
Yeah, me too. Like I'm a good, 6 to 7 months to get my story out. And then I need somebody else to look at it and be like, or you could go actually tell me the name of that character that you forgot to name. It's like, oh yeah, whatever the case may be. That never actually happened, but I did change a character's hair color halfway through on accident. It happens, but they caught it and I fixed it. So,
well, when I started writing the story, one of the funny things about this one is I didn't have a main character name. The main character did not have a name, and I thought, I don't know what to name this guy. And so I put it out there, And I said, I put it on Facebook. I said, give me a name. And here's the premise of the story. Give me a name that you think would sound pretty good. And whoever I chose, I gave it the offer. I said, whoever I chose, whenever the book gets published, you get a free copy of the book. And I had, oh my gosh, I had a score of names, a score of people give me gobs of names. And I'm looking through all this. No, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. And I kept one in mind because it was so outlandish from this woman who's in our Tuesday night group. She gave me the name of Filbert Canary. And I looked at that and I thought, that's really weird. And she says, yeah, you can have a lot of fun with it. And I thought, no, that's not going to work. There's got to be something.
Anything.
There's got to be something better. Yeah. So I just went through all of the names, and I went through all of the names again, and I went through all of the names again, and gosh darn it, that Filbert Canary just stuck with me. And I thought, I could do something with that, because Filbert, and she spelled it like the nut. And so it's nut bird, canary is a bird. So you got Filbert Canary and nut bird. Wow. I could play with that name. It can be Phil. I could be Bert. I could be Birdie.
It's true.
And so that's where the story kind of got its little lighthearted, lot of humor. There's some dry humor. There's some just lighthearted. It doesn't get very scientific-y, technical.
Yeah.
Because I don't know all of that stuff.
Right.
But I did have to make rules for the universe in the world. I had to world build. And so that was where I had to enlist the aid of a couple people saying, what do you think?
Yep.
So
I love that. No, and I think it's so important to have people like that on your side, on your team, just in your pocket, because I have two. I have a military guy, and I have an engineer / chemical engineer / space engineer. He's all the same person. So I have these two guys in my back pocket. We host a podcast on Thursday nights, and I'm like, hey, does this make sense? Because I've got an urban fantasy in the works, and I was like, hey, could this work? And he's like, no. Like the military guy was like, not really, thanks. I mean, but it's good to have those people, because sometimes you just need to ask, is this possible?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah. I enlist a friend. If I have a problem with a scene, she'll give me 3-4 hints or suggestions. Most of them I can scrap because they won't work, but I can take one and say, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I can adapt that and make this work.
Yeah. No, I love that. Oh, okay. So we are now to the point of the show where we're going to flip the script, and you are now the host of Connected Conversations for Creatives. So the floor is yours.
Well, I wanted to ask, we've talked about marketing, and I'm always interested in new marketing techniques. I discovered a couple of down at a conference that I went to in April that I've been really working with and throwing out on social media. And I'm kind of enjoying the process. I'm working with Photoshop and Canva. I really like Canva. And making little videos, little short videos and everything to put out there. So my question to you is and especially since we talked about marketing as a self-published author, what have you found that kind of works for you?
When I first started, I didn't really know. I will just be honest. Like, it felt so inauthentic. Like, it felt so disingenuous to talk about myself and my work and to say, hey, I wrote a book, you should buy it. Like, it felt kind of icky to me, because I'm all about, I can sell stuff, but this felt like selling me, and I didn't like it. And so it was really hard, my first book, to really get a hold of any kind of routine or methodology to use. And so I was relying on posting on Facebook. And I'm sorry, but like I've not liked Facebook for probably the last 4 years. It's just kind of changed a lot. And so I was like, man, this isn't getting me anywhere. So I joined TikTok, and I'm the old lady over there on TikTok, because I'm not an influencer, but I do have fun with it. And that is something that once I learned not to take myself so seriously and to make my work the focus and not myself, it got a lot easier. And so that really was where it all started for me, was on TikTok. And then from there, I grew a small community. And I have people that specifically work with me and my books. They work with other authors too, but like I have chosen these people. They've asked me, and we go through a vetting process. And so they're my team. They're my street team. And, as soon as I have a book out, they read it, they advertise it. And they're like the will work for free books ladies. And it's so amazing because, we love each other. They get early access to everything. They feel special. They get paid on their advertisements that they do because, you get paid to influence and that kind of thing. And so we're a team that work together for the common goal of getting everybody to read my books. So that's my most favorite and also most effective form of marketing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, the other question I had was, and it's a very timely question in that I have recently run into some issues. Not only do I have bad luck with publishers, I have run into very rarely bad luck with other authors who do not reciprocate support. And I'm wondering how, if you've ever experienced that, and how you get around it, and what type of support authors should be giving each other. We're in a business, yes, and we're in a competitive business, yes, but I think it's a different type of business to where I can go, hey, you like mystery and you like fantasy? This guy over here's got it. And then he'll turn around and go, oh, you like mystery? Hey, this guy over here's got it.
Yeah, that's a great question because up until 2022, late 2022. Yeah, because my first book came out. And so then I started the podcast and I started just kind of talking to people and finding out. And I don't only talk to authors, I talk to musicians, I talk to artists, I've talked to organizers, like their life goal is to organize everybody's life, and they wrote a book about it. And so we talk about that. But anyway, I created this little network of creatives. And I was able to network other creatives with creatives. And so, I've recommended a book cover designer. I've got an entertainment lawyer that I recommend. I've got small press publisher that I'm constantly, and so when I started, but it's not every person that I talk to, right? Like when you're doing 52 interviews back to back, you're not going to have 100% success rating making a connection. But when you do, that is a person that you can add to your community, and you can tell when somebody's going to add value, and you just immediately want to reciprocate. And so I think that's what you have to look out for, is find people who will add value, and don't go into it expecting anything. Just be aware that they will do it naturally, because if you're meant to work together, it just kind of happens. It's like a spark, right? You feel it. It's a vibe, really. And I know that sounds kind of woo, but you know what I'm talking. It's that gut feeling, that intuition that you have. And that's where the two co-hosts that I have on Thursday nights when we do our podcast, they were guests on my first season of the show, and we just kind of stayed in touch after that. And so now we're like best friends kind of thing, and we've never actually met in person, and we critique each other's work, and we're constantly sending out encouragement. So just find those people that you want to add value to their life, and you know that they're going to add value to yours, because we do see each other as competition, and we're not, because every book is not for every reader. And just because, I write contemporary romance and somebody else writes contemporary romance, two totally different stories for two totally different audiences,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's my short answer. I mean, it's a good question though, because that is hard. It is hard. I do not do reviews for other authors. I will do them for my two besties over here, but I'm not going to do reviews for other authors. If they want to send me a book and say, hey, will you arc read this? I will not. I will read it on my free time, and I'll let you know how I feel about it, but I won't publicly review your work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's dangerous. Risky.
Well, yes, it is. That was one of the things that one of our publishers suggested was, hey, go to our other authors in the company and say, hey, who would like to trade reviews? And I've done that, and it's great. It worked. I had one guy, and I came back to him here 8 months after he reviewed it, and I said, "Hey, could you put that up now? Could you post it? Because since the book's out now."
Yeah.
So.
Well, and if it's a good book, if you can give me 4 or 5 stars in a book, I have no problem reviewing it. But I won't agree to review it up front. I will say, I'd love to read it, but I will not do it in exchange for a review. Like, I'll even pay for your book or whatever, but I'm not going to, because if I don't like it, I'm not going to say it out loud. I'm just not, because I know what it feels like to get that 2-star review, or actually it wasn't even a review. It was just somebody clicked 2 stars. And I'm like, did your finger slip? Because nobody else agrees with you. I'm just kidding.
I have had that. The review, I had 2 reviews. One of them I had to ask Amazon to remove it because it got personal.
Oh.
It had some things in there that I didn't agree with, because I didn't think she took the whole book. She read it incorrectly, in my opinion. And one of the goofiest things she says was, writers should not write in other genders. I thought everybody does that.
Oh my gosh. Oh my word. Yeah.
But the kicker was, at the end, she said, she wrote something along the lines of, this book would have been a whole lot better if the author weren't so sexist and racist. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. That's not fair. You can't get personal that way. If you don't like the book, fine. If you don't like the way I wrote, fine, but don't start insulting me. And I wrote to Amazon, and they removed it.
That's good. That's wild. I can't even imagine. Like, I'm not reviewing the author. I'm reviewing the book.
Yes.
That's crazy. I'm glad they took it down, because you never know with Amazon.
Oh, well, I thought, come on. It is not, if I write, I mean, I've read books where there are racial slurs in there, but that is the way the character thinks and speaks. That is the way the author wrote that character. That doesn't mean the author thinks that way.
Right.
That's the way the story goes.
Yep.
You don't like it? Don't read it.
I agree. It's so hard, though, for readers to separate out those things. And they're like, I don't know where fiction begins and reality ends. And I'm like, well, maybe you should see your therapist about that. But yeah. Goodness gracious. Okay. Well, Steven, will you please tell listeners how they can connect with you and your work?
You bet. I'm on social media, Facebook, Steven Brayton author, at SLB, that's Sam Larry Boy, and SLB Brayton, is on what is it called now, X, or Twitter. It used to be Twitter, it's now X. You can look up my writer's blog at stevenbrayton.wordpress.com, and I have a weekly blog that talks about a lot of what other writer blogs talk about, the craft of writing, but I change it around a little bit and then specifically talk about my books, of where, like, I'm doing the current series is on setting. So where have I set my books? Most of them are in Des Moines.
That's convenient.
Yeah. If you just put Brayton into Amazon, Steven Brayton, Steven L. Brayton, you'll find all of my books there. I'd love to get people on my monthly newsletter. So if you would like to send me an email, you can do that. Those are the sign up places there. All the information is on that WordPress blog, and you can find links to all the books there too, and all the activities that I'm doing. And so I have not got into Instagram. It looks too complicated, and if somebody wants to handle it for me, I'll be glad to let them.
That is the best investment I've ever made, is somebody to post to Facebook and Instagram for me. And all I have to worry about is my newsletter and TikTok. And that makes me so happy. Like, it's the best thing ever, because ew.
Yes.
But we'll make sure all of your contact information is in the show notes so they can find you easily. They can click a link and it should take them wherever they need to go. And now I have one last question. I call it the big question. You've had all this time to study for it. Are you ready? Because it's pass or fail, so good luck. All right. What is one piece of advice or encouragement you want listeners to walk away with if they hear nothing else?
It's a multi-part answer a little bit, because it really, you can't just have one without the other, because if you just do one, then they're going to go, well, what about this? So if you want to be a writer, then write. That's as simple as I can put it. There are no caveats. There are no conditions. Write, which means turn off the television, turn off the radio, turn off the social media, turn off your email, sit with a computer with word processing and write. And if you can't I have heard this phrase over and over again, and it works in so many ways. If it's important to you, you will make time. If it's not important, you will make excuses. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, I think that's the biggest thing. If you want to write, then do it. Find time, make time to write, and do it. And I don't care how much planning or outlining or pantsing you want to do. There comes a time when it comes to fingers on the keyboard or pen to paper. And if you're not going to do that, then you get what you get. And you got to make it important to you, and it's got to be that passion. And the other part of that is don't quit your day job.
That's right. This is no get rich quick scheme.
Well, and see, that's part of it too. There are, every time I cringe and I wince, every time I am at a conference or at a meeting and I meet somebody who says, I've never written anything in my entire life, and I just had this story in mind and I wrote it down. And you know what? The first publisher I went to published it and it made it big. And I went, I really don't like you anymore. Go away. I don't want to hear it.
Oh, I'm so with you on that. It's like, but why? That's so valid. I think that's fantastic advice, though. Like, don't quit your day job now. And I will say, it's funny. We just had this conversation over on the Author's Dilemma podcast a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how sometimes that day job gets in the way, because it does. Sometimes you work long hours. Sometimes you come home tired or whatever, but you do have a commute there. And so you have, voice to text, you have a note-taking, voice note-taking app or whatever on your phone. Do what you can, because if you really want to tell the story, tell the story in some form or fashion and then get it on the page. However, you got to make those, exceptions and accommodations.
Sure. Like I was saying, I was waiting for Dad and I was writing down notes to the story.
Yes,
because
exactly.
if I didn't do that, I would never remember it in the next hour.
Yes.
To write it down. I know people who have notebooks by their bed. If they wake up in the middle of the night and have an idea, they scribble it down because they're not going to remember it in the morning.
Oh, that would be me. My notes app on my phone constantly. I'm going, hold on a second. Stop talking. Hold on. All the time.
You got it?
Yes, you have to. Okay. Well, Steven, thank you so much for hanging out. I'm so glad we got to actually have our conversation. It worked out so beautifully, and it really was a fantastic conversation.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.